right, folks, welcome to another episode of Film Study. This is Ken McKusick, and we're here to have a special episode for two new apparent coaching hires. Let me be careful about that because neither of them, I think, has been officially reported by the Ravens, but they're widely been reported by insiders in the NFL. And to talk about those two, here is with me is Femi Ayanbadejo, the former running back for the Ravens and also current analyst. Femi, really appreciate you joining us.
Thanks, Ken. Man, happy to do it again. Had a great time with you last week, so I'm excited to dig into these two coaching hires.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun last week, and there was a podcast called Ravens DNA. Go out and look for it on your favorite podcast platform if you want to hear Femi and I chop it up in terms of the Minter hiring and what that might mean for the Ravens, keeping some of the good things about the Harbaugh era. Anyway, the first of two hires, Mick Mickens, defensive pass game coordinator and DB coach. Will be and I'm not sure if that's his title with the Ravens. I believe that was his title at Notre Dame. So
yeah, I think he's going to be DB coach and defensive passing game coordinator is what I saw. So
okay, so that's what I had in here. So great record of some fantastic secondaries at Notre Dame in the last 3 years. He's coached 3 defensive backs who went in rounds 1 to 3 of the draft: Benjamin Morrison, Xavier Watson, Kyle Hamilton in the last 4 years. And then Leonard Moore, who looks like he'll go number 1 in 2027.
Yeah, what I love about Mickens is that 1, he was an All-American at Cincinnati. 2, he was drafted, I think, by the Cowboys, like the 227th pick, maybe something like that. Had a short career, but jumped right into coaching. He obviously crossed paths with Jesse, I believe, twice at Cincinnati when Jesse was a GA and he was a player, and then they both coached at Indiana State, I believe. Obviously while at Notre Dame, he has 2 things that have been his calling card that I absolutely love. He has a great relationship with the families that entrust him to kind of raise these DBs and players from a recruiting perspective. But I've also heard that he's a brilliant and talented mind, and it's a great loss for Notre Dame, but it's a great get for the Ravens.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is one thing you definitely hear from the Notre Dame fans is how much they object to having lost him. Now, he was 6 years there from 2020 to 25. It's actually kind of a little surprising he stayed as long as he has. And I'm a little surprised he didn't get an NFL job before that, given how good the secondary's been at Notre Dame. Last year, they were one of the nation's best, a 69.5 passer rating against, 14 touchdowns, 21 interceptions. Yeah, that's not the other way around. That's 14 touchdowns and 21 interceptions. They were 5th by PFF grade. I go back to what I'm seeing on the Notre Dame boards is just how big a loss this is for them.
Yeah, I think that I'm happy for him because I'm going to assume that as a former player and kind of looking at his kind of rise as a defensive assistant and then a DB coach, I don't know if he has any coordinator experience. He actually might briefly have had some play calling, like D coordinator experience. I need to go back and look. Just for full transparency, I want to keep it a buck with you guys. I haven't done a ton of research on Coach Mickens. I mean, obviously, I know who he is, generally speaking. But the thing that stood out with me was just kind of the emotional loss that the Notre Dame fandom and organizationally, like what it means to them. That really tells me that we're getting a great quality coach. I really want to hear what Kyle Hamilton has to say. I mean, I'm sure it's all going to be positive. Yeah. And hopefully I do want to resign Alohi Gilman personally. I know that's another conversation for another day. But I would love to hear former Ravens that have played for him that would share their kind of, subjective personal anecdotes about their experiences. I'm looking forward to hearing that. But I once again, I think I've made this point before. I trust the Ravens as an organization. Now Jesse is part of the organization. I trust his judgment. So right now it's that honeymoon period. I'm just excited.
Yeah, it's it certainly is very exciting, and just to come right off the bat and get a coach like that is terrific. You mentioned Mickens didn't have any play calling experience. I'm not sure that really matters because I think he's an outstanding defensive coordinator candidate, particularly with Minter probably calling the plays for this foreseeable future. And it may be, the quicker you get Mickens elevated into that coordinator role, the quicker he becomes a head coaching candidate other places. And I'm not saying the Ravens want to lose him, but always part of your process, part of your thought process has to be, we're going to lose our good coaches And if we do, we want to get something in exchange. And there are Rooney Rule implications in the case of Mick Mickens that they would get 2 third-round picks if he's selected to be somebody else's head coach. So very exciting hire. Just positive from all points of view, but most of it's on the field, which is what I really love, is the tremendous success.
Yeah, I think that I want to tap into something that you mentioned about the coordinator experience. What I feel really good about is that we all believe Jesse's going to be calling the plays, right? And not to downplay it or overstate it, or maybe understate it, I should say, is that to some degree, you're playing with house money a little bit in the defensive coordinator role. And what I mean by that is you don't need to have somebody who has play caller experience, but if you can have a young genius XO schematic brain that allows you to say, I see a trajectory for this young coach that's exponential growth, a force multiplier type effect on players and potentially the coaches that he's going to work with. And you can set him and tee him up for the future. I'm all for that. And once again, I will not dive down the offensive coordinator side of this because that's my thought process is the exact opposite in this case. But sticking with Coach Mickens and what he does is to just kind of put a stamp of approval on your point. Clearly, he's lauded and appreciated, and you always want to make sure there's some upward trajectory for the talented coaches that you have on your staff. You want to dangle that carrot to let them know, like, hey, we have a plan for you, and there's a way for you to kind of, work your way up the ladder to reach your goal. So we get what we need, and you get what you need to. Yeah. And elevation is always going to be on the mind of a talented coach.
That's right. Nobody wants to be blocked within the system, and it's possible the Ravens will not have access to the top current coordinator, play caller, hot coaches right now, but they can have access to exactly what you're talking about. Brilliant young coaches who can add a level of quality control to the defense, control one element of that. Like it'd be fine if you had a great linebackers coach or a great defensive line coach that you could entrust to be your defensive coordinator. He effectively runs one room. Maybe he runs your pass rush scheme, which may involve multiple levels. I don't think Chuck Smith would necessarily be the guy, but Chuck Smith is currently the pass rush coach for the Ravens. And if you have a guy who can integrate the pass rush component and Mickens, and then you have a defensive coordinator, head coach, that would be an exciting triple to put together. The Ravens have a lot of ways I think they can work to find a true quality person at that next level without giving them the play calling responsibilities.
Yeah, no, I agree. And if there's anything that we know, think about how many young, talented Ravens position coaches and coordinators are kind of, littering the NFL at this point, kind of all over the place. So if there's anything that the Ravens do well, it's definitely find young minds, groom them. And, sometimes they come back like a Mike McDonald did, and then obviously they go on to have success somewhere else. But I think that just speaks to the kind of intestinal fortitude of the organization and the way that we do business. So it's still a tip of the cap, even if you don't get to keep them. You never know. Sometimes they come home.
Yeah, no, it's a great day. I'm very proud of the Ravens' way in terms of the coaching development. Let's move on. Talk about the offensive line coach. Again, a reported hire today, Dwayne Ledford, the former offensive line coach for the Falcons. He was the offensive line coach and the run game coordinator for the past 2 seasons. Apparently, Stefanski let him go so he could bring Bill Callahan from the Titans in. But what do you know about Dwayne Ledford?
Man, I love him for some of the similar reasons that, I love Coach Mickens. Obviously, former NFL player. I think he played 7 years. I know he played for the 49ers. Highly regarded, highly respected. I love Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier, both running backs, obviously, for the Falcons. Really hard-nosed, tough players. What I love is that in the last 2 years, the Atlanta run game was top 10. I think they were 7th and 8th or 8th and 9th the last 2 years. And Bijan, who I did draft him in one of my fantasy leagues, his yards per carry has gone up every year since he's entered the league. I think he was over 5 yards this year. He was just under 5 yards last year. And I think he was at like 4.6 the year before that. And this is all, under Coach Ledford. And Coach Ledford has, I think one of their guards is a top 2 or 3 PFF guy at his position. I'm a huge PFF person. As you already know, I love the analytical work. So I'm always deep diving into PFF. But one of the things that I love about him, as I mentioned, the same thing about Coach Mickens, is the way that other people speak about him, right? And I think one of the true signs of leadership, trust, high character, and humility is when you sit back and you let other people talk about the things that you've done well and how great it is to work with you. And I think both these guys have people that are really going to bat for them and speaking highly of the way they communicate with other coaches, the way that they treat and teach players. And if you go look at the data, it's reflective. You look at the performance of the guys that they've coached, they've all performed well. So really excited to have him on board. And as you know, Ken, and once again, I never want to kick somebody while they're down, and this is a business and I get it, but these are all human beings at the end of the day. And so I had some things that concerned me about the way the Ravens offensive line has regressed. And, Coach D, passing away, and then Coach Warhop kind of taking the reins. And it's not just all on Coach Warhop. I do think that Coach Monken, to his credit, has always been about, we all share in the success and we all share in the blame when things don't go the way that we want them to. So, upward and onward to the next thing. So I'm happy to have Coach Ledford on board. I'm looking to see the Ravens get right back into, having that offensive line that's always going to be in the top quartile of run blocking, pass protection. There's a metric that I'm sure you're really familiar with, and I don't know what the name of it is, but I guess it's how much space or how far past the line of scrimmage does the running back get before
yards
first contact?
Yeah.
There you go, yards before contact. And so I know that we were in the top of the league for a while at that, and we regressed for a little bit last year, and then maybe toward the end it got better again. But I think that's a really key metric, and I'm looking for Coach Ledford to kind of put his thumb on the scale in regard to the yards before contact metric.
All right, a lot to unpack there. So let me go back and hit on a few things.
Sorry, I apologize. I apologize.
But first of all, let's talk about Warhop, because he came in a very tough situation. Obviously, Jody's health declined very rapidly. I didn't think they saw it coming, or they would have done something ahead of time to get the guy. Warhop did some really nice things while he was here in terms of reducing penalties, and he worked with the hand that Jody dealt him in a way. Daniel Falele was his guy, and he really worked with him very hard to try and make it work. And I'd say in the end, they're probably going to move on there. It wouldn't shock me if Falele was back, but I think he really would do better with a fresh start. So anyway, that's just in terms of, George Warhop did the job the Ravens asked him to do. And I, to his credit, Harbaugh wants to interview him for that job in New York too. So he might end up there.
And he could take Daniel with him too. They can take Daniel right to New York with him. They'd be great there.
All right. I'm more centered on Daniel Falele than that, but I understand Daniel really needs a fresh start. So with Bijan Robinson, I want to talk about briefly, because his season in 2024 was completely overshadowed by the seasons of Barkley and Henry, who were winning all the awards and whatnot. Bijan Robinson had a little under 1,500 yards and 4.8 yards per carry, but he had a 60.2% success rate. That was the highest ever, the highest in the history of the National Football League for anybody with 300 plus carries. And that's a remarkable metric. Now, it also
Ken, will you define that for, because a lot of people don't know what that is.
Yeah, absolutely. And some of the people who listen to the show obviously know it, but success rate basically is it's a 1 or a 0 for any play. And it's a 1 if you gain at least, and I believe it to be 40% of the yards on first down, 70% of the yards on second down required, and 100% of the remaining yards on either third or fourth down. So if it's 3rd and 3, you have to get at least 3 yards. If it's 2nd and 10, you need to get at least 7 yards, et cetera, et cetera. So it's a measure of how are you keeping up with the sticks on a down by down basis as a runner. And the Ravens' strength has been over the last, since Lamar came in the league, has been in terms of very high drive success rate, which is very closely tied to success rate of your run game. Lamar Jackson has been a guy who's improved success rate in running backs across the board. And now he's getting a coach who obviously improved Bijan Robinson's success rate in a way, and is probably very conscious of it. This just bodes very well in terms of a marriage between Ledford and Jackson.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I think that for me, Bijan Robinson, to go back to him, he's one of the more well-rounded, talented backs in the NFL. You can watch him catch a screen and take it for 60. He's very comfortable being flexed out and running halfback option routes. And just for clarity, when I say a halfback option, I don't mean like a run, like a quarterback option. I'm literally talking about a halfback on third down. He can get flexed out or motion out and literally run a one-on-one route on a nickelback, on a linebacker or a safety, and get open. There's very few running backs that are very efficient at that. Keaton Mitchell is one of the guys that I talked about last week. I'd love to see do more of that. Right. Bijan Robinson is excellent.
Let me stop you for 1 second here. So when you talk about a route like that, you include wheel routes in that, because probably the most common route you see a running back run. Is that part of an option route, or is that not really?
No, it's a different route. We can get really detailed. Like the main third down routes that I would look at as a running back, and I've ran all of them. The option route is an important one because you have a three-way break, right? You can break up, you can break out, or you can break in. And sometimes you can sit down. So technically, there's 4 different things that you can do. And think about that for a minute as a running back. You have to recognize zone or man, and you have to recognize leverage of a defender if it is man. A wheel route, you're just running a wheel, right? And a wheel route, obviously, you're taking the flat, and then you're taking it up the sideline. You're going to run the wheel no matter what. There's no option in a wheel route. The key word in option route is the ability to is option, right? And I know sometimes when fans hear this, they might not be sure exactly what we mean, but some of the other combinations off that can look the same are the halfback angle route. And then you have a fake angle route, right? And all an angle route is you fake the flat and then you come back across the middle of the field. You can run a fake angle where you basically run the flat, fake the angle, and then you...
Every day, companies you've never heard of are making millions off your personal data. Your name, address, phone number, even details about your family are pulled from public records on the internet, then sold without your consent. There's an entire marketplace built on your privacy, and most people have no idea it exists. Aura fights back. Aura removes your personal data from broker sites and keeps it off. Aura also alerts you fast if your information shows up in a breach or on the dark web. But Aura is more than just a data broker removal system. It's a full digital security suite that protects every part of your online life. Aura gives you a VPN to stay private, antivirus to block threats, a password manager for safer logins, and spam call protection to shut down scammers. Aura scans the dark web for your most sensitive information and notifies you instantly if anything is exposed. And if your identity is ever stolen, you're backed by up to $5 billion in insurance and 24/7 US-based fraud support. Other service charges about the same, but only cover 1 or 2 areas. Aura gives you everything: data broker removal, identity and credit monitoring, device protection, and fraud support, all in one simple app. Aura removes what's already exposed, protects what's not, and puts you back in control. Go to aura.com/remove for complete digital protection and peace of mind. That's aura.com/remove. Hi, folks. The Super Bowl is here, and MyBookie is where you can turn your bets into bankroll. Are you scheduled to go to the Super Bowl party and you don't want to be there? Yeah, I've been to that party too. Managing your portfolio of wagers through the evening can be your ticket through Super Sunday without getting caught up in your brother-in-law's political rhetoric. Whatever your take on the game, MyBookie has both side and prop bets to make your Super Sunday a lot of fun. That's why I use MyBookie. You've probably heard them talked about on Jimmy Kimmel Live for their deep board of prop bets. These bets become some long-lasting memories, including watching Refrigerator Perry score in Super Bowl 20 at 100-1 odds. If there's ever a time to get in, it's right now. One account, one wallet, bet the spread, live bet the second half, hit the casino during commercials. It all lives in one place. Go to mybookie.ag now, use promo code Ravens, and get your first bet covered up to $500. If it doesn't hit, use your bet back bonus token and run it back. Don't just watch the big game, make it pay on MyBookie.
Let me tell you about the online cannabis company that's changing the game, Mood.com. They created an entirely line of functional gummies, 100% federally legal THC blends discreetly delivered right to your doorstep. And here's the best part. You can get 20% off your first order at Mood.com with the promo code Ravens. Now, I've tried a bunch of their gummies myself. Each one's totally unique. The Sleepy Time gummies knock me out right away. They help me unwind fast, leave me refreshed the next morning. The Epic Euphoria gummies, they're perfect for when your day just isn't going the way you want it to go. What makes Mood special is how they pair the THC with natural herbs and adaptogens. You won't find blends like this at any local shop. They've got gummies designed for focus, relaxation, clarity, even energy, all made from cannabis grown on small, family-owned American farms. No pesticides, no shortcuts, just high-quality weed you can trust. Plus, Mood backs everything with a 100-day satisfaction guarantee. So head on over to Mood.com, check out their amazing selection, And don't forget to use the promo code RAVENS at checkout to save 20% off your first order.
Break it out, right? So there's all these different combinations. And the point that I want to make, I don't want to make this about the running back route tree.
Mm-hmm.
I want to make this about Bijan Robinson and his skill set and how unique it is in regard to him running routes like a receiver and his ability to hit all the high level metrics as a pure inside, outside zone, power, draw runner. Like, I mean, the dude is one of the most talented running backs in the league. And we got a guy who coached him that's going to bring that knowledge and that experience. It's going to help Keaton Mitchell, and Derrick Henry's already a Hall of Famer. But I think Derrick Henry, and this goes back to the point that I made before, Ken, all good. There are no such thing as good teachers, right? There's only good students. And my point is I think Derrick Henry's a heck of a student. And obviously Coach Ledford is a heck of a student. And obviously it's a bit of semantics, but he's going to be a heck of a teacher to this running back room.
Looking forward to it tremendously. In terms of his resume, he's got an absolutely outstanding resume in college. We'll just talk about this a little bit. Appalachian State. Now, most people know Appalachian State from their win over Michigan in 2007. It's been a lot of years since then, and they were an FCS school at the time. It was one of the biggest upsets. Michigan was number 5 when they beat him 34-32 in 2007. He was there from 2012 to 15, so he missed that. But what he hit on was their transition from FCS to FBS, effectively what we used to call moving to Division I football. That's first of all, it's very difficult to do, but they moved into the Sun Belt in 2014, and Ledford's offensive line that very first year was ranked in the top 10 nationally in adjusted sack rate, and they were in the top 40 teams, not 40 percentile, the top 40 teams in terms of carries of 5+ yards.
Yeah, you know, I can't, and it's hard, Ken, and I know that it's going to drive you crazy that I do this. I have so many thoughts in my mind, and I get so exuberant in my head. And I just want to talk about all of them because I'm excited for what all this success and all this knowledge means in regard to what Coach Ledford is going to bring to this team. And we talked about Ravens DNA last week. I think this is a DNA augmenter. I think this is a DNA force multiplier. I think the thing that you were concerned with is that I hope people don't come in and try to rearrange the double helix and start splicing and cutting and putting in what they want. It's as opposed to, if it ain't broke, you don't need to fix it, right? And so I think Coach Ledford is going to respect and honor what we've done. And he's got like an amazing backfield. You know, he's got an amazing backfield and an amazing quarterback. And I made this point and I stand on it. I will take 5 all-pro linemen over 5 all-pro skill players all day because I just understand that everything is run and all success starts in the trenches with the offensive line. And I've already seen this movie. I made the point again. Go back to 2019. Go look at the skill guys and go look at that offensive line and look at what Lamar did. You made the point that on a play-per-play basis, no team has been more successful than the 2019 team. That's a correct statement, right?
No Ravens team, certainly. They're about the 5th best offense of all time if you go by points per drive. Yeah. So I feel like we are getting what we wanted, Ken. That's the point. My long-winded, circuitous way of getting there is saying we're going to get what we want, I think, based on this offensive line hire. Super excited about this as a dynastic hire. This is a guy who is, what is he now? He's in his 40s.
I think he's 51. Is he 49?
No, he's younger than that.
Is he?
He might be 49. He might be 49. Yeah. But either way, he's a guy who could be here 18 years, 16 years kind of thing. That's exactly what you want. He was with the Falcons for a good long time, just this last run. And offensive line coaches, they typically want to stay offensive line coaches. It's kind of a niche field. The offensive linemen, if you've ever gone and seen an NFL practice, they spend a lot of time together over in that group. And I'm not saying there's no time to like try and move up to offensive coordinator for that, but such a specialized skill, you have to add on pass game responsibilities, which are a very significant incremental component to pick up. So it's kind of a hard leap to go to the next level. But anyway, Ledford, I think, could be a long time hire for the Ravens.
Yeah, to tap into something that you just said, in my experience, my 11 years in the league, and I'm going to be honest about this, there's no group tighter than the O-line. No matter where I've been, offensive linemen, they are the tightest group on the team. I 100% put my stamp on that. And don't get me wrong, we're talking about margins here that are slim. Most position groups are tight. And the success makes you tighter, right? The better you play, you kind of feed off of that. And I will say the teams that probably aren't that good that I've been on, that we haven't been as tight as groups, and that has permeated the locker room. But Offensive linemen are unique characters. A lot of them are very studious, really intelligent, often shy or more on the introvert side. And now, of course, there's always going to be an outlier that's a little bit different. But the D line, they're more boastful. They talk a lot of trash. They're almost the antithesis and the opposite of the offensive line. Like if you go to war, go with the offensive line, right? They're the biggest guys, but they're also the guys that are going to have your back, and they're extremely loyal and just a great bunch of guys to be with. So I can't tell you how many amazing offensive linemen that I played with throughout my time in the league beyond the Ravens, and just the different observations that I've made about position groups. The O-line always stands out in my mind as a unique group and a unique bunch.
Yeah, they I think in a lot of different cases, they're the ones who start like gaming groups at the individual teams and whatnot. I mean, they obviously we had John Urschel here, who is a complete outlier, even on any kind of intellectual scale. But
absolutely,
we've had others who like the Packers offensive line, I think, put together a regular Settlers of Catan game in their locker room, and you don't normally associate that kind of nerdiness with football players, but there's a lot of that going on. Believe me, there's a lot.
And real quickly, Ken, John Urschel. Now, talk about a brilliant mind.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, where is he now? What is he doing now?
I think he's teaching at MIT. I think.
Yeah, he's got a PhD in applied mathematics or something like that, right?
Anyway. No, it's in something far different from that.
Is it really?
Yeah, applied mathematics. That's the kind of PhD that I would have if I were in the thing. His is way above. He's okay. Difference. Urschel is a theoretical mathematician, which means he likes recursive formula that are elegant in nature and whatnot. Applied mathematics, they just want to solve problems and figure out the
okay.
That's more of what an actuary does. He's way above me in terms of intelligence.
Understood.
So let's go on to the rest of Ledford's career a little bit. He was at NC State. He dramatically improved the OL pass blocking from 2016 to 18. There's a whole bunch of information out there about adjusted sack rate and how that improved, but he came in and he had a really bankrupt offensive line at NC State, and he moved them way up to the top of the ACC in terms of pass blocking. So it's good to see success on both sides, that he's having success in the run game and the pass game.
Yeah, you know what's interesting, and I hate to keep harping on this, but I think as I was digging through his bio, and maybe you have it in front of you, did he have some? Yeah, did he have some coordinator experience at the college level as well? I think he did.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think that might have been an NC. No, that might have been App State. Let me check real quick.
Yeah. Well, I just think it's important, not because I'm completely consumed with coordinators. Maybe I am actually, but I just find it fascinating when you can have that other tool in your toolkit. And obviously, and for fans that don't know, teams position their staff differently. Some guys are up in the booth looking down, and that's how they prefer to help and assist. Offensive line coaches tend to, almost 99% of the time, they're going to be on the sideline. I mean, that's where they need to be. But the offensive lineman assistant, the GAs, the coordinator can be upstairs. I find it fascinating when you have a position coach that has coordinator or head coach experience, because it's another brain to tap into in regard to exotic situations and pressure situations. And I mean, that pressure, not like on the field, but pressure in regard to like intensity of the game. Sometimes the fog of football can get people lost. And sometimes, people that are very self-aware and alert can kind of pull everybody back to the moment and say, hey, I have some experience here, and offer some advice. And I think one of the best things about coaches in general is that they don't really care who comes up with the solution, as long as it's a good one. And I think maybe having that little bit of experience could potentially help him even bring more value than he already does.
Looking at Ledford's bio, he is 49, first of all, for starters, to give you a framework for that. So he's had offensive coordinator experience at both Appalachian State and then again later at Louisville, which is the next job we'll talk about, because he and Satterfield went to Louisville at the same time. They took over a program from, it's either Patino or Petrino, and I always get the two mixed up. But he took over a program that was 2-10 in the year after Lamar Jackson went to the NFL. So 2018, Lamar's in the NFL. Louisville goes 2-10. Then 2019 and 20, Satterfield and Ledford showed up and led them back to an 8-5 season. So they got a nice, good rebound right off the bat. And he was offensive coordinator there for at least one of those 2 seasons. So you're absolutely right about that. I want to ask you, if you're making an offensive game plan, don't know if you've ever been involved in that or seen the coaches who were involved with that. in your time with the Ravens or other organizations. But how much is that a collaborative effort, and how much of that is one guy putting it together on his own?
No, it's extremely collaborative. I've been more involved in different places. But I think that, you have the Brian Billings and the Norv Turners of the world that have ideas, and they could do it alone if they wanted to, but they're going to include their position coaches because it's just so much ground to cover. But it's definitely collaborative. And I think it's even more collaborative now, to some degree. And I think that the fact that they actually are giving, and this could have been a thing when I played, and it could have been a thing before I played. I just don't remember it being a thing. And I don't remember hearing it when I was playing, this idea that somebody is a defensive pass game coordinator, just the run game coordinator. Because if you look at coaching staffs, Ken, they've ballooned from when I played. There was far less coaches on the 2000 Super Bowl team than there was on the 2012 Super Bowl team that my brother was on, and the current team. Like, if you look at these pictures, one of the things I noticed when I went to the castle, I'm looking at the wall, I'm like, oh my God, these coaching staffs, which I think is amazing. I love the opportunity for the coaches, are ballooning. And I think it goes right in line with the exotic and the creative things that are happening, because you're delegating and giving people real specific things to work on. And then they kind of piece it together in the factory as a whole. They kind of, they stitch it together and create this tapestry, and then present the game plan. But I do think that they're kind of isolating different pieces now more than they ever have.
Yeah, I mean, you got to have more people just to do what they do from an analytics basis, because they grade every practice. They now have boards in every individual position group room of, who's the leader in blocks made, and, all of these things that you wouldn't necessarily expect. But the players, they seem to love being ranked, generally speaking. You certainly love to be ranked if you're number one in most of the categories. And Ricard has even come to the podium and talked about that in one case. But I think they love it in general, and it's a very motivating thing to have that up there, and it showed the people that, and it requires a lot of effort from a lot of human beings back there. Some of them are coaches, some of the coaching fellows, coaching assistants that you don't even hear on the names because they're another rung down the ladder, but they do show up in those photographs, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, I think the quantitative components of ranking and grading each practice is massive, because to know that there's going to be a quant signal attached to your performance on a day-to-day basis is extremely gratifying, especially if you do well. And if you don't do well, it's like, hey, I need to get my ass in gear because I'm getting outperformed by the guys I'm competing with or that I'm playing with. And I don't want them to think I'm not going to be able to carry my own water. And you're right. Like when I was playing, that wasn't, I mean, you got qualitative feedback every day. We watched film every day, but we didn't have the micro detailing of like, oh, you missed this block here. Remember, alignment assignment technique data was only provided post game. You didn't get that after each practice, but now you do. And I was blown away when I surveyed all the different positional rooms at the castle during our 2000 reunion, our 25th year reunion not that long ago, and to go into the room and to see all the different ranks and how the players are set up in the competition. It makes so much sense, because just think about it, right? A locker room, we're playing ping pong, we're playing cards, we're playing spades, we're doing all these different things, and this just translates. I think it's extremely motivational, and I wish we had that when I played, to be honest.
Mm-hmm. It's definitely very cool. All right, so I think we'll just wrap it up here to say, he did play have a 7-year career, 6 different organizations over that period. He only played 9 games of NFL football. 8 of them were in 2003 with the 49ers. He might have even played in that game against the Ravens. The Ravens beat him 44-6 that year. He might have played in that game, but I didn't have time to look it up. But not a guy who, with a ton of NFL experience, but he's an NFL lineman who is teaching other NFL linemen. There's something to say about that as well. That I guess that wasn't the case with Joe D. I don't know how far he got in his playing career, but you might know.
I'm not familiar. And Ken, just like full transparency, there are some amazing coaches that have not played at the professional level. If you have it, great, but I don't knock it if you don't. I got a curiosity in front of you. How many years was Coach Ledford in the? I think he was in the league. Was in the league for 6 or 7 years. Okay, yeah. He had a pretty long career, but I guess as a backup, huh?
As practice squad backup.
Okay,
camp invite, but six different teams over 7 seasons. Yeah, mean, obviously he wanted to do this for his life, and it didn't work out. There's so many people who are like him, where they never really make the minimum for pension or whatever it might be otherwise, but they hang around and they'd love to play on a practice squad. It's a little bit of money and it's something they love. I mean, I think he's one of those.
Yeah, no, I have, there's some overlap there for me. I have my own story. Obviously I played a lot more than that, but sometimes the biggest thing you can do is just stick with it and hang with it. And you just never know when it's going to click. And, I give any guy that wants to grind it out for 6, 7 years, even 3 years, you've earned my respect because I know how hard it is.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Femi, thanks so much for joining me on this. This is great stuff. I think hopefully the people listening are appreciating as much as I am just having this conversation with you. Tell folks where they can find any work of yours or anything you'd like to plug.
Yeah, so on Instagram, Obafemi30, you can find me there, and X also Obafemi30. And as you guys know, I'm on 105.7. I freelance there. I work Purple Power Hour at Dennis Pitta at 98 Rock, and I'll pop up in all kinds of random different places. So yeah, just feel free to reach out to me on social media though. I'm always down to respond and chop it up with the fans. So I'm pretty accessible.
Okay, outstanding. Thanks again for coming on, Femi. Other folks out there, please use hashtag Filmstudy Mailbag. I'll get your question to the appropriate show. I might answer it in a 1 to 3 minute video or in one of the other regular pods we have come up. I'm certain we'll be talking to Femi again fairly soon about it, but thanks again for coming on.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
And we'll talk to you next time on Film Study.